This is the ultimate camera test of iPhone 15 Pro Max versus Google Pixel 8 Pro. The battle of Apple versus Google. Let's go to work. Let's start with color profile and saturation in a very colorful fall season today. Both phones has different implementation. They both look really nice, but you will definitely see the differences in vividness and saturation. The iPhone 15 Pro Max, for all we know, have tendencies to provide punchier colors than Pixel phones, not as vibrant as Samsung colors, but enough to stand out on comparison test. You could definitely see that they're crushing the reds and the blues, and sometimes even the temperature on the image looks really warm on iPhone 15 Pro Max. You would also see that the iPhone is crushing the blacks more than the Pixel counterpart. The color science on Apple iPhones are more contrasty than the competition. While the new Pixel 8 Pro tends to produce natural looking images, sometimes a little bit dull compared to the Samsung and Apples of the world, but they produce images closer in real life. Also, I noticed because of the HDR shot, a lot of photos on Pixel phones are brighter compared to iPhone 15 Pro Max. One of the things I cannot catch is the white balance because sometimes iPhone will produce warmer photos, but on some shots, Pixel will actually produce a warmer temperature than the counterpart. Looking quickly at the specification of both phones, iPhone 15 Pro Max has triple camera setup with 48 megapixel main sensor with dual face detection autofocus and sensor shift OIS and 12 megapixel ultra-wide and telephoto that can all shoot 4K recording at 60 FPS. Checking the selfie camera, it also has a 12 megapixel with face detection autofocus and OIS that can also shoot up to 4K 60 FPS. While Pixel 8 Pro has a bigger resolution camera starting with 50 megapixel main shooter with multi-directional face detection autofocus, multi-zone laser autofocus and OIS, a 48 megapixel telephoto lens with the same 5x optical zoom, and another 48 megapixel ultra-wide with dual face detection autofocus too. The front selfie camera only has 10.5 megapixel sensor, but it's also capable as the iPhone 15 Pro Max with video capability up to 4K 60 FPS. The hardware part is pretty close on both phones. I think the only difference is the sensor shift OIS of iPhone 15 Pro Max. Pixel 8 Pro only has the regular OIS. I also noticed it takes longer for Pixel 8 Pro to shoot a photo because of the auto HDR, and just overall it gives the images a well-balanced HDR look. And checking all three sensors from ultra-wide, wide, and 5x optical zoom, colors are consistent. This is the audio test of these two phones. This is iPhone 15 Pro Max with its internal microphone, and this is Google Pixel 8 Pro with its speech enhancement on. Which do you think is better? Next is action mode, and iPhone 15 Pro Max can shoot up to 2.8K while Google Pixel 8 Pro can only shoot Full HD. We are now shooting in cinematic mode or cinematic blur 4K on iPhone 15 Pro Max and Full HD on Google Pixel 8 Pro, and I think the subject separation is still better on the iPhone. This is slow motion test 120 FPS in Full HD. And this is the super slow motion test 240 FPS in 720p resolution. Next is flaring, and although I think iPhone 15 Pro Max did a really good job on reducing the flaring on photos when you hit the direct source of light, Pixel 8 Pro is still doing a better job. Checking the highlights, if you look outside the window, both iPhone 15 Pro Max and Pixel 8 Pro is managing it well. Well, for exposure, iPhone 15 Pro Max, because of the more contrasted look, it would give a darker shade on the shadows, and because of the HDR shot, Pixel 8 Pro will expose the scene better to the point that the image will look washed out. I'm glad to tell you that both phones has macro capability, but I think Google Pixel 8 Pro has a closer focus than iPhone 15 Pro Max. And looking at the sharpness on all three sensors from the ultra-wide, wide, and telephoto zoom, iPhone 15 Pro Max and Pixel 8 Pro are equally good, and even on a 30x digital crop. The only difference is there's more details on iPhone 15 Pro Max because Pixel 8 Pro tries to smoothen the image. And lastly, for this category details, 24 megapixel of iPhone 15 Pro Max and a 12 megapixel JPEG of Pixel 8 Pro. And because of the pixel binning technology, I think both phones will produce detailed images and you won't be able to notice the difference. I think that's it for the image test, the colors and dynamic range, and some neat video features. Now let's check the stabilization from the rear cameras to the selfie. First, let's check the ultra-wide in 4K 30 FPS. I'm intentionally shaking the two phones, but as you can see, the stabilization is really good on both phones. We're testing the main sensor, and the only difference are it's better exposed on iPhone 15 Pro Max, and there's more contrast and shadows on Pixel 8 Pro. This is the 5x optical zoom. Who do you think is better on stabilization? And lastly, the selfie. I think in terms of contrast and stabilization, Pixel 8 Pro is better on the front camera. This is the flagship showdown between iPhone 15 Pro Max and Google Pixel 8 Pro. And what a way to end this year, having two of the most popular phones being compared on a camera comparison test. You will even see some of the videos online that Google is trying to joke around the USB-C port of iPhone 15 Pro Max, so I think this comparison is anticipated to be one of the most popular ones. iPhone 15 Pro Max is the more expensive of the two, and outside of this camera comparison test, it has a better processor, the A17 Bionic Pro, and now has the USB-C port. Well, the new Google Pixel 8 Pro is banking on their 7 years of software support, and the camera app now has Pro mode for anyone who wants to manually dial the settings of their Pixel cameras, and a lot of camera AI features to edit the photos. You have the Photo Unblur, Magic Editor, Audio Eraser, Best Take, and so on. I may do a separate comparison video to talk about the camera AI features of Google Pixel 8 Pro. It is also more affordable than iPhone 15 Pro Max, so the question today here is, who do you think is better? Let's talk about the portrait mode, and I feel you would love any of the portrait modes of these two phones. Certainly there are differences on how they implemented the portrait mode, but both looks really good. Starting with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, you would get less blurry background, but one of the great things about the portrait mode of iPhone 15 Pro Max is the subject cutout. Apple got better and better with the portrait cutout on the newer iPhones. The skin tone is on the warmer side, and there's enough details on the skin if you pixel peep. I think one of the Waterloo of the iPhone is the white balance. Sometimes it will throw you off, it gives you a cooler white balance on the image, and that's probably one of the inconsistency of the iPhone. While on Google Pixel 8 Pro, you will have a lot of details on your face. I feel like the computational photography of Google is highlighting the face of the person on the portrait mode. There's a certain glow or lighting on the face of the subject. The only problem I have with the Pixel 8 Pro is the subject separation. They're still not quite like the Samsung or Apple in terms of cutout. They will still miss some areas here and there. It has a creamier background blur. In camera terms, it feels like you're holding a faster and bigger lens compared to iPhone 15 Pro Max. Looking at the focal length, you have 1.5 and 2 times on Pixel 8 Pro, while you have 1x, 2x, and 5x, which is 24mm, 50mm, and 85mm counterpart on camera, so you'll have more options on iPhone 15 Pro Max. The selfie cameras produce the same kind of vibe. I think it's a little bit warmer on iPhone 15 Pro Max, and you will have a brighter face on Pixel 8 Pro. In terms of night shots, I think Google is no longer the king of night photography, but I feel like if you are strongly voting for a natural-looking night shots, then Google is still the way to go. The night shots on iPhone 15 Pro Max will stand out in terms of white balance, colors, and brightness. It provides these better exposed images compared to Pixel 8 Pro. While Google Pixel 8 Pro is as good as the iPhone counterpart, again, it will not be as exposed as iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the color is a little bit toned down. You will have neutral tone and a little bit darker, but the sharpness is the same as the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Flaring on strong light source is also a little bit better on Pixel 8 Pro, and I believe sometimes on darker environment, you would get less ghosting and overall sharper on Pixel 8 Pro. And looking at all three lenses from the ultra-wide, wide, and telephoto, I think both are consistent in terms of color, sharpness, and exposure. And lastly, low light video. I wouldn't say that one is better than the other, it's just different implementation. iPhone 15 Pro Max will try to brighten up the image, but Pixel 8 Pro will give you a darker image, but less noisier and sharper. I would slightly favor the iPhone though. So this is the ultimate camera showdown of iPhone 15 Pro Max and Google Pixel 8 Pro. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is a really good camera phone, especially on video recording. It has great audio, autofocus, and higher resolution. But in all honesty, I think Pixel 8 Pro closes the gap in video recording capability. I still feel that the images on Pixel 8 Pro are better than iPhone 15 Pro Max. It has a lot of camera AI features that will help you in editing the images. They have to improve though on subject separation and the portrait mode, and better exposure on night shots. But overall, if you look at the price point of these two phones, you will get more out of the Pixel 8 Pro. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll continue to compare these two phones in our channel, maybe the battery test next, so stay tuned. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.